These are the people that will randomly ask you to join your Smite clan or whatever it was that we had. Remember we added some random dude?
Yep.
And just never played with him.
No, never. Not
Never.
once. Not once, not never. Hello and welcome to another episode of Millenniotic, the podcast where a couple millennials talk about society, entertainment, and the logistics of life. I'm Jason.
I am AJ, and if this is the first time you're catching our episode, welcome. If not, we've had 12 before. This is our 12th episode.
Yes, it is.
So if you've missed any of the previous episodes, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We have all of these videos there, as well as other clips, and follow us on our social medias, Facebook's, Twitter, Instagram, and then you can listen to us as well on any of your favorite podcast applications, I guess you would say they are.
Yeah, now iTunes, Spotify, pretty much. Just all that general stuff. They're applications now, yeah.
Platform, any of your favorite podcast platform.
So today, we're going to be talking about types of gamers.
Types of gamers.
And I think a little bit more specifically from what you were kind of telling me in like our little powwow beforehand, like how do game developers like target their audience, or more so research
how
that
they
goes
design
into
their game.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and defer to you and let you start us off.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So what we're going to be talking about today is the Bartle Taxonomy of player types. That's the official term of it. There's been scientific studies done by people.
Well, taxonomy is a very scientific word.
So I had to actually go to Google and figure out how to pronounce that properly. I was like, taxonomy? Like, I had no idea. So pretty much he breaks it up into 4 quadrants of players, right? So I'm going to go through each of them, and we'll discuss games that I think fit in each of these player bases, I guess you could say. This was mostly based on MMORPGs for the most part. Because I believe this was done during the WoW days and before that, even when there were MMOs.
So it's like research that they were doing to like kind of understand how like their community would be.
Right. And like the type of things they needed to have for the game so that all of these player types could be interested in the game, right? And it's gotten even more specific nowadays where people are obviously making games for the niches for specific player types and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So the first type are called the Achievers. So the Achievers are more about going 100% completing a game than actually getting like skillful in the game, I guess you could say.
So it's more so about like, it's more so about the numbers. They're in it for the numbers game as opposed to like actually going for competitive play. Their
measuring stick is pretty much their amount of achievements they've gotten.
Yes.
And to an extreme amount nowadays is like cosmetic items inside of games. Right?
Oh, yeah,
because that's a popular one where if you do a certain mission X amount of times, you can get specific things in games, right? When it's either you pay for it or you grind it out.
Which is kind of really funny because that's like a very arbitrary, like, it's really an arbitrary way of measuring your success in a game. Because I feel like it's not hard for game developers to design a game for these kinds of people, you know? Like,
I guess it's less about games themselves as it is like the gamer.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because this is a measuring stick to show how much you've achieved in gaming. So the example they gave is for Xbox Live, you get a gamer score based on achievement. They give you points.
Yeah.
So the higher gamer score you have, it shows that you've done more things fully, I guess you could say, right? So that's how some people look at it. I've definitely 100%ed games before.
Yes, I have, yeah.
So I understand this player base for sure. The game I 100%ed was actually Assassin's Creed 1. Assassin's Creed 1, I went through and found all like the little things in the city where you had to like jump and parkour to each.
Yeah, I think mine was probably Banjo-Kazooie. Was probably one of my first to do. Just because like those games were collectathons. That's all they were.
It was.
You're just going around collecting things.
I'm sure people who played Sonic and stuff like that have 100%ed games and stuff like that.
Yep.
So they also break it down into the single player and how they react on like multiplayer settings, right?
Okay.
So for single player, they're pretty much the 100% game completers, like I said, right? That's what their goal is. And then for multiplayers, it's really to show their elite status in the gaming community,
Yeah, they're trying
I guess
to
you could
flex.
say, right?
Yeah.
And what they're trying to do is gain praise from a group that we're going to talk about later called the socializers, right? So they're looking for praise.
I'm thinking about
What?
all I can think of when you mention like praise or anything like that is back in the day with Halo 3. If you beat oh my god, I said beat it. If you beat Halo 3 on hardcore mode, you would get the samurai sword on your back.
Yeah.
That was ultimate status in Halo
Yeah.
3 was to have that samurai
That's
sword
so
on
true.
your back.
and in Halo 3 as well,
Yeah.
it was unlocking all the armor pieces by
Yeah.
doing random things inside of the campaign.
Because they were single player objectives,
Right.
but reflected in your online play.
Exactly.
So you could just flex on everybody.
That was the perfect example for this, actually.
Yeah, that's
Very
all I can
good.
think of when you were
Very
talking about
good.
it.
They said Xbox Live Gamer Score was a way to do this. I thought of it as another game that I'm more close to, I guess you could say, which is Overwatch.
Yep.
You can show your dominance and how much you've played the game by just the border around your name. Or, whatever you say your SR is. And if people actually care about that kind of stuff, right?
It's true.
So that would be another example. And like I was 10th prestige in Call of Duty 4, and that just showed I played the game like way too much, right? That's all that is.
It's funny how they've like evolved it from just like numbers to actual like items within games, you know what I mean? From like actual like customization and like ability to change your perception from other players. You know what I mean? But
I would describe this group, if I had to describe this group in one word, it'd probably be grinders.
oh yeah.
These are the people that grind games into dust.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
So the second type of game, gamer, I guess you could say, the second quadrant, are called the explorers. So the explorers prefer to dig around and explore and immerse themselves inside of the virtual world.
Yeah,
find the game
Find
itself.
Easter eggs.
Right. That's another popular one they like to do. They like to find Easter eggs as well as glitches. And they don't like being timed. They don't like time missions. They like to do things at their own pace.
Interesting.
For me, the example of the game that these people would play would be like a Fallout or
Oblivion.
Skyrim.
Yeah,
exactly. One of those games where you could just wander around and not even do the main objective and yet immerse yourself inside of the game somehow.
Which is why I find it funny how you mentioned how they don't like to be timed, because when I hear explorers who like to find like those little special like glitches or hacks or anything like that within a game, I think of speedrunners. Because I remember back in the day, Skyrim had a very like huge blow up for speedrunners when people found out that you could use a bowl, like holding onto a bowl with like, like the mechanic how you basically levitate items in front of you. If you held a bowl in front of your face and moved into a wall, basically you would cause like this glitch that literally lets you phase through the wall, and the bowl would be left behind. So that's why I think, because like speedrunners, they're looking for those glitches. They're looking for whatever they can do to master their time. But it's, I suppose when you label it as explorer, it is more so for those people who appreciate like the game mechanics a little bit more, or like the people who just want to see everything that those game developers can offer them.
Yeah, they push the limits of the game. They do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily just Skyrim games. This could definitely go into any other kind of online multiplayer game where you immerse yourself inside the environment and you try to find these little nooks and crannies to hide in for stuff.
Going back to Halo, I can think of rocket jumping.
Yeah.
To go outside of the map and stuff like that.
Yep, stuff like that for sure.
Yeah.
So when it comes to single players, right, they don't really care about combat and leveling, right? And that's kind of what I said. They secondarily, they'll do it as a part of the game that happens. In Skyrim, you complete side quests, you get XP, you're going to level up regardless, right?
Yeah, it's true.
It's just less than like the main objective, and it's not, and it's more stagnated, and you're not held down by one objective as long, right? So they like to enrich themselves in any of the backstory or lore of the game virtual world, I guess you could say. So these are the people who read the Skyrim books.
These are my kind of gamers.
Right? These are the people who read the in Skyrim books.
There's so many.
Right. And because they immerse themselves so much, they'll be able to recall fond experiences from it because of the things they'll be able to discover. Then they can share. And they create stories that way.
Yeah.
When it comes to the multiplayer aspect, they say they get bored with MMORPGs pretty quickly because after the main content and you get to like that max level, they're not grinders. These people are not the grinders.
Yeah.
They'll move on to another game and
true.
immerse themselves in another thing.
Well, because that's the thing. MMOs have a whole lot of grinding in them. So, I mean, for those explorers to even be able to explore, they have to do some level of grinding in order to move on to the next phase, or like in World of Warcraft, the next country or
area, whatever it is. Yeah, for sure, because you'd be super underleveled otherwise.
They have their level caps.
Right, so they find it as like a chore. It's not fun for them, and I totally understand that too. Absolutely. We definitely have a friend, Remy. He's definitely an explorer because he likes to like understand the story behind a lot of the games, but he's all over the place with his games.
Oh, I know. It's
He'll
true.
play games for 2 weeks at a time and be all over the place and be like, "Hey, have you played this game? You played this game? You should play this game."
Yep.
He'll
tell
never
you,
play it again.
He could pretty much tell you all of Witcher lore. He could tell you all of Warcraft lore just because he's read all of the outside books.
Yeah, and there's people, Mass Effect.
Yep.
That's a popular one too with the connecting story, and it brings a lot of conversation online for sure about that kind of game. So the next type are the socializers. We mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, speaking of conversation online.
So I would classify these people as one word. It'd be casual. These are the more casual gamers, I would say. And the aspect of they're not looking to either improve. They're more looking for the social aspect of playing with people or there to make friends, right? So I know that I don't like to play certain games by myself.
No, that's true.
I like to play games with other people.
Yep.
So there's only some games that I'll play by myself, but there's only some games that I'll play with other people as well. Halo was a great game to be able to play by yourself and with people.
But I feel like social gamers, like when I hear like that name, I can think of like Second Life or VR chat,
Second Life,
or Minecraft servers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's what I hear when.
I think Minecraft would be a very good example of that, where people just kind of go into a random server just to see what people are doing.
Yeah, exactly.
To see what's the haps.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
It's a great game for those people who are explorers and socialites.
Right,
It
exactly.
seems like, really.
Because it's Minecraft, they give you such basic, I guess, like basic tools to work with, but you can create so much in that kind of universe. And you can push the boundaries of what the game engine will allow, for sure.
So it's to those developers, they knew their target audience and they programmed it well.
Exactly.
I'm not much of a person for that game, but I
I'm not a
understand the
Minecraft
audience.
kind of person, but...
When you break it down like this, you can understand that audience.
Right. So these people rather interact with human people rather than AIs, but they don't mind figuring out interactions between interesting AIs in certain games, right? I know in like Fallout 4, there was this beer bot that you could actually just have as a follower.
Yeah.
And he would just give you free beer whenever you want, as long as you didn't turn in the quest. You would be able to have him follow you around wherever. So like that, for me, is an interesting AI just to have an interaction with that isn't a person.
Yep.
So that's the kind of thing they're looking for. They're less about the actual game content themselves.
Yeah.
Though.
Or like kind of like an interesting quest tree or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it comes to single players with these gamers, I guess you could say, right? They play more of the popular games so that they can engage, whether it is in-game or out of game, with people and talk about the game, right? So
got you.
they will play
The games that are more up to date.
Right, but they'll also play games that have some lore to them and be able to talk about it with the explorers, for instance, right? So Mass Effect is an example that they brought up, as well as KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic.
Yes.
Right?
So it's kind of like you can go online, not necessarily in-game, to discuss theories and stuff like that.
And Fable was another one they mentioned.
That's probably a huge incentive to play those games, is just to be able to theorize like the plot or specific characters, or just kind of break down the game's plot.
Yeah, and just talk about like how certain characters interacted at some time based on lines they said. Like they're just looking for a conversation with somebody. And depending on which person they run into, which of these quadrants, then that determines what their conversation that they're in. And for multiplayers on this one, these are the people that like to get involved with clans and guilds. Right?
Yep.
So these are the people that will randomly ask you to join your Smite clan or whatever it was that we had. Remember we added some random dude? And just never played with him.
No, never. Not once, not never.
So that's an example of a guy who's just looking to socialize probably, and found our clan and just decided to join it because we didn't have any limits. But that's all right. For me, I don't play the games to socialize with people, really. If I run into somebody that I click with, I'll like add them as a friend. But for the most part, my friends list on a lot of these games aren't massive.
Yeah. But I take a little bit of gripe just because I feel like more competitive games nowadays, especially stuff like Overwatch, should kind of more be encouraging for those social gamers, or just to encourage their gamers to be a little bit more social. Simply because like
they have tried.
Yeah.
Overwatch and specifically have tried to implement a way to kind of just blindly create groups that you could queue with.
Yeah.
They added a looking for group system.
Yeah.
It just wasn't used.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Because it's, I don't know, there was something about like the old Halo 3 days of being online, because you just always kind of wanted to have your mic on. Like nowadays, everybody always has like their mic muted, or they're not in team chat.
Everything's private.
Everything's so private, and it's, I don't know, I just felt like more inclined, but maybe it's just because the player base wasn't nearly as toxic. But I think the social aspect of it is what encouraged it to be less toxic.
Games were so much more simple back in the day.
Yeah, they were.
Where, for the most part, it was a matter of doing a certain thing before somebody else did. Otherwise, you would lose, right? So, for instance, in Halo, you would play Team SWAT, and you had to shoot people in the head before they shot you in the head.
Yes, you did.
So, it's one of those things where you can get better at it, but that can be pretty toxic at the same time.
Yes.
It can definitely be a toxic environment, with Halo especially being the first game to introduce teabagging, right?
That's true.
Like mainstream teabagging.
It's true.
So that, like, Halo is a good example because everybody was playing the game because it was so much fun to play, and it was easy enough for people to play, and there was enough things to be able to do. But there was also a toxic side to Halo.
There was. I'm not going to deny that there wasn't.
And every scene kind of has their own toxic side.
It's true.
And it's a matter of what toxicity are you willing to put up with.
But the issue is like, as a community grows more toxic or grows more competitive, the smaller your player base is going to be. The less inviting that game is to your target audience, or you're trying to sell this game to people. You need to make more money. These developers need more players in order to keep the game running, to keep funding, to be able to keep updating. So how are you going, like, competitive and toxic scenes is what's going to limit more new people to engage with this game.
Right. So game developers in that aspect go free to play. Like that's a thing people do. CS:GO did that because it's an old enough game. Their player base got so small, they went free to play to try to build it up again.
Yep.
And I think that PUBG was discussing going free to play. Apex Legends is free to play. All these. You sensing a theme here? Fortnite is free to play.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you can see like how the battle royale genre really scooped up the free to play aspect to try to make a more diverse player base because they can make it so big
Yep.
and try to hide the amount of toxicity that way, because the toxicity would only be at a certain level. And for the most part, for these casual gamers, they're not going to have to deal with that. And when it's such a big player base, because those interactions that would be toxic are so far and few between. Whereas in a competitive game with a smaller base, you could be playing with the same people
Yep.
over and over again.
you can.
I know in Overwatch in the high ranks, pretty much everybody knows everybody, because there's really like 1,000 to 2,000 people
Yep.
that are at that really high level.
Yep. And they're only playing at specific times. Like certain groups are only playing at
Right, so you
specific
know
times.
that this person plays at this time, and this is
Yeah.
the role they play, and this is
Yeah.
the character they
You're
play, and
gonna
this
be
is how
running
they
into
play
them.
that character.
Yep.
Like, that's how in-depth it kind of goes.
It's crazy.
So the last one we have, and we didn't mention this type yet. We kind of hinted at it a little bit in the last one with the toxicity.
Yeah.
And it's called killers. So these are the people who thrive on competition with other players. For the most part, they don't really care about the PvE aspect of games. They're all about pitting their skills against other real-life people.
Yeah.
And giving that as a measuring stick. So in the competitive scene, the ranking systems, that's what's their measuring
what their
stick
measuring
is.
stick
Oh,
is.
I'm a grand champion in Rocket League,
Yeah.
or top 500 in Overwatch.
Which, when you think about it, you shouldn't even be measuring by those standards. You should be measuring by your or your KD.
It's all about the KDA, dude.
all
It
about
really
KDA,
is.
dude.
And that's what it is in Call of Duty for sure.
Yeah.
I remember my brother sabotaged my KDA on my account, and I was very upset because I definitely wasn't up below 1 KDA in Call of Duty.
Because I was very aware of a glitch in your favorite game, Smite.
Smite,
that
dude.
was in competitive duel. Apparently, if you surrendered before 5 minutes, it didn't go against your MMR. Nothing was minus. Literally 0 for both sides. And it was so bad because
That's so
everybody
toxic.
was doing it. And it's like people could just reach Grandmaster by just
So
surrendering before 5 minutes.
I'm going
if
to
things
join this
weren't going
game.
well.
I'm going to join this game, lose first fight, and leave.
Yep, exactly what
That's
happened.
terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
That's terrible.
Yep.
That's another reason I do not like Smite. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome for that extra ammo.
But there's a certain part of this quadrant that they are the type that are what we call in Overwatch Smurfs. These are the people who are a much higher rank,
Yes.
creating a new account and playing at lower ranks, and like just crapping on people at lower ranks because they're better than these people because they're not actually that rank.
No, it's true.
And this is a big problem in competitive free-to-play games, right? Because they can make as many accounts as they want and just keep leveling it up. And while you're doing this, you're ruining the gaming experience for a lot of players along the way.
Yep.
And it kind of shuts them out of the games,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So that's why certain games like PUBG hasn't gone free-to-play.
Yep.
Overwatch isn't free-to-play yet.
Yep.
These type of games aren't doing that to try to snuff out the smurfing problem. For the most part, it's a toxic thing to do to any community whatsoever. Even if you're not saying anything inside of the game, it's going to be a toxic experience because all you're doing is getting crapped on and you're not being able to enjoy the game in some sort of way. And Overwatch itself already has enough characters and strategies that are toxic in just the fact that they exist. With people like flaming you, it really shuts people away, which
Yeah, it
is the
does.
point you made,
Yeah.
right? And I know MOBAs, for the most part, can be toxic because if you're not in the right place and you don't know what you're doing, you can get flamed very easily and the game can snowball in the wrong direction, you know? So it's hard to really put games into specific quadrants because every quadrant can have their own place in kind of every game.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a matter of just how they go into and how their mindset is inside of the game.
Yeah.
So Overwatch is a great example because there's certain roles that you play. There's tank, damage, and support. So for the most part, you can figure out like the support people are there to most likely just try to keep your team up and have fun, play as a team, right? DPS are looking to pop off. These are the killers.
Yep.
And the tanks are looking to guide the team to victory, right? So that's what the achievers are. And then you have the killers.
Yeah.
And then, supports for the most part are the ones talking in voice chat.
Yeah.
So they would be more of the social type.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There was a really good thing that I read about, like, how these quadrants kind of affect each other and kind of create like an ecosystem, and how too many killers are going to kill your game.
Yeah.
Simply as that. They're going to kill your player base.
Yep.
But the thing is, everything kind of like evens themselves out. Like, more killers is going to influence more killers is going to influence more achievement hunters. Those people, it's going to make the achievement hunters try a little harder to kind of find like game breaking mechanics or anything like that that's going to try to stop them
And give them an advantage, right?
Yeah. More socialites are going to make more socialites.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's like you have to find that balance between what your game is offering for all of these people, if you want to even offer it to all these people.
Or what niche you want to go for, right?
Because there are niches like competitive games, which are Call of Duty and Overwatch, that are specifically just going to be targeting killers. But the fact of the matter is like you need something else to be able to balance it out and create a bit more of a friendlier player base, whether it be through your game mechanics that make it a little bit more accessible for everybody to play, or kind of just silence out all of these extra players. And you could do it by IP address. Like, your IP address only allows you to make one account. You know what I mean?
SMS, I feel like, is the easiest way for...
Because
yes
people can
and
change their
no.
IP addresses. It's easy as that. It's so easy for people to work around.
Right, and the SMS thing, too, is there's apps or whatever, you can just get free numbers.
Yeah.
So if you just need, like, a confirmation code on a free number, you just create a number on a random
WhatsApp.
app. Right.
Yeah, just start a new WhatsApp account.
Or, yeah. So there's ways around it. So until they figure out a way, which I don't know if there really is.
No, there really isn't. It's hard. It's hard to keep those people down.
So you were talking to me before the show about how you had like an updated version of this.
Yeah.
Because this, I would say, is a little outdated because it doesn't necessarily include newer games and like how their communities are.
Yeah.
So we're trying to compare them to popular games nowadays.
Yeah.
But you were telling me you kind of had an updated version by a certain journalist,
Yeah,
right?
it's a gaming journalist named John Radoff.
Okay.
It was more so he had a problem with the fact that the 4-quadrant system by Bartle. Is his name? Yeah, so it more so really was just applying for how MMOs could figure out which target audiences or how to apply or basically generalize types of gamers in order to appeal to all of them, all 4 of them in an MMO with like a PvP system, with their social systems, with everything like that.
Right.
Because at MMOs, they want to keep people playing for as long as possible, and they want the biggest audience that they can get.
And that's why
so they
WoW...
they were trying to generalize.
And that's why WoW is so successful, because there's
they
the
really
arena,
They found a good balance.
there's the raids, and then obviously
The leveling system
the
for
leveling
the achievement
system,
hunters.
and then the guilds are big. So there's a lot you can do and a lot of player bases they can appeal to, so you can play either with your friends or by yourself, right? So it's a really good game, and they have a really good system in place to make money off of it, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's Blizzard's money printing machine next to Overwatch.
Not like Overwatch League, which recently started,
Yeah.
is doing okay.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's WoW.
It is WoW.
WoW is a lot of... Because they even had Heroes of the Storm Pro leagues canceled.
So what Radoff was trying to basically do with his 4-quadrant system was to kind of break it down into online players and offline players. Like
Okay.
who's doing what. So,
Very good.
You know, the 4-quadrant system, it's an x-axis and a y-axis. So his x-axis in both directions are actually covering like games that have less players and games that have more players. So
Okay.
at the very bottom of the less players, there's no online co-op. There's nothing like that. It's just single player campaign mode. And then the y-axis covers qualitative and quantitative. So qualitative is just like what people are looking for quality in their game. Quantitative is the audience looking as far as numbers go. So on the very far side, you have immersion. Players who are looking for an immersive experience, which, gosh, that is just such like every gamer's favorite word when it comes to big open world games.
Immersing.
How much does this game immerse me in it? Which is just
play the game, man.
Just play the game and enjoy it. But you get what I mean, where it's like less players, more quality. They're looking for a single player campaign that really can like immerse them in like the story and all those things, which when you think about it is like kind of like those explorers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you break it down into the other one, less players, but more quantitative. Those are achievers, or achievements is what he calls it, which are your achievements. They're looking for those things that they can do to make it seem like they're better at this game in just like those little ways.
Right.
And then you got qualitative on the other spectrum, which is many players, which I love, which is cooperation.
Right.
Players who are looking for those cooperative systems that like make you work together in different ways, which you break it down with Overwatch. You got your tank, you got your DPS.
You need to work as a team.
Or even just a cooperative campaign. That's what people are looking for in their multiplayer experience when it comes to quality.
Halo, Gears of War,
Yep.
Army of Two was a game for sure.
Yep. So that's how I personally measure my multiplayer experience when it comes to quality, is how cooperative is it? How well can this game make us work as a team? And then in the other spectrum, you got quantitative, and many players is cooperative. I mean, not cooperative, competition. So you have your competitive gamers and everything like that. But yeah, that's how he kind of took this system and kind of turned it around to apply to not just on MMOs, but also for online players and offline players of all kind of likes.
So that's interesting because it kind of does mesh all of these 4 quadrants, but it kind of gives it a more 3D approach to
Yes, it does.
Right? Because that's pretty much what they're trying to do, because games nowadays aren't 2D for sure.
No, they're not.
But when it comes to looking at them, you have to look at them in a 3-dimensional way, not just a 2-dimensional way. So that's where looking into each quadrant and then breaking it down even further with the implicit and explicit kind of the values that they get out of it.
Exactly.
Whether it's directly stated or indirectly stated, right? So I found stuff like that too, where the killers, for instance, like they want to be good with a lot of rep, but the implicit is they could be bad with a lot of rep if they're toxic. So they could be a famous toxic person, and they can be a famous good person. So that's kind of the checks and balances in each quadrant, and you definitely break it down nicely for sure.
Yeah.
So we definitely talked about probably 90% of the gaming community.
The gaming community.
For the most part. My thing is they don't really tell you much about how hardcore or casual these people are, right? There's not really a way to gauge it based in this quadrant. And yours gives it a little closer.
A little bit, but it's not 100%.
There.
There's also like those people who just like really like specific aesthetics. Like I'm one of those people who, if you show me like an old 80s retro game, like that, like a brand new game that has like 80s aesthetic feel, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to be buying that. I love that sort of thing. Like you have like specific types, or, you know, tryhards, those people who don't necessarily have skill, but they're so tenacious that they're just so sure of themselves that they're great at this game.
And they're trying really hard.
They're trying really hard.
Yeah.
But like there's so many different names and so many different labels for all different types of gamers. But the Bartle for the Bartle 4 quadrant system is really, it's a company's broad generalization of their audience. So it's not necessarily perfect, but it's very good at their way of assessing how they want to market their game, or who they're marketing to.
So that was in essence, how game companies look to either market their game to specific niches or ways they design their games, because they have this principle in essence in mind of these type of people are going to be at this game. And I wish there was more of a breakdown of percentage of each of these quadrants. If like the more competitive games nowadays are more popular, even though it, like, for the most part it's largely casual.
Yeah.
Or are there more people just looking to do little single player games casually and just get it through at their own pace. Like, I'm not quite sure which is more popular.
Yeah, and I wish I could have found more information for this episode, but I mean, all the information I was finding, if you guys really wanted us to talk about it, was all those BuzzFeed articles about their interpretation of different types of gamers, and
that
I
was
wasn't
kind
gonna
of
do that.
that was kind of my problem too with
Yeah.
a lot of the things that I was finding, where it was just random websites that were just like, like, oh yeah, this is this person, and
Yeah.
they for the most part they stereotype a lot of things.
Yeah,
And this
exactly.
is more scientific, and then we're able to throw our opinions in. So that's kind of why I wanted to go for this kind of approach to that. And I'm sure a lot of people already know which quadrant they fit
They
in.
fell, yeah.
And depending on the game you play, you could be in a different quadrant as well. So that's the way this breaks it down.
Yep.
As a good way. We were kind of critiquing it a little bit,
Yeah.
but for the most part, that's a very good way to break down the gaming community, I guess you could
And
say.
kind of like a last minute thought on my mind, just when
Okay.
you bring up casual gamers. When I hear casual gamer, it kind of upsets me because casual gamers, when you think of them, you think of like those adults or parents playing Wii Sports or something like that, or just like spades or whatever on their computers. When casual to me, because I'm very casual gamer, I feel like when I think of a casual gamer, what I feel like casual really kind of is just somebody who doesn't care that much about a game, or just wants to play, or just wants to enjoy and relax and enjoy their gameplay. It's not necessarily that they're incapable of understanding like broader aspects of the game. It's just more so, it's just a game. At the end of the day, it's just a game. Why get yourself all worked up about it?
Right, and it's some people, like you said, you don't care about the result of the game. It was a matter of the experience of going through the game and things that happened.
Don't get me wrong, I hate to lose, but
Right. I mean, for the most part, I don't think anybody loves to lose.
yeah.
But if you had fun in the game you were playing and you ended up not coming out on top, it's whatever, right? And like for me, I compare that to pick up basketball.
Yep.
Right? Like
true.
sometimes you just get dealt the wrong team.
Yep.
And you guys just don't make any shots. But if you're having fun running around
Yep.
playing basketball,
Yep.
then it's a win,
And
in my
feel
opinion.
I feel like maybe like more competitive games, or like more of those Overwatches or anything like that, could maybe try to make it so that their games you care a little less. Somehow they can make it so that you can care a little less about dying or losing or anything like that, or just like try to bring down those killers. And I feel like, I don't know, there was Dark Souls to me when I think about it, just because you die and you immediately respawn not too far away, but your repercussion is that you've lost all your experience points and you have to somehow get that back. But I feel like I get less aggravated, even though it's such an incredibly hard game, at Dark Souls than any other game I've ever played when it comes to dying.
Right. Dark Souls is a very unique game
Yeah.
in that kind of way where you're going to die
No matter
going through
what.
it the first time.
Yes, you are.
Because you don't know the mechanics of every boss fight.
Nope. Yep.
Right?
It's true.
So you will understand going in and you'll learn from it. And then you get the sense of accomplishment when you finish it. So that's why Dark Souls is such a popular game, and it kind of like broke its own kind of genre in that
Yeah,
aspect.
it did. Yep. It's true.
So that was a fun episode to talk about because I like talking about games. I like playing games as well. And next week we're going to talk about the real world a little bit more. And we're going to ask the question, are you woke? Are you woke? And we're going to figure out ways to determine your wokeness. Whether it's just knowing things or just having a sense of what's going on, or actually having a full understanding of certain things. What classifies as being woke? Because you can say woke, and I know about this Iran crap that's happening. I don't know all the details,
Yeah, exactly.
but
right.
I know it's happening, so I'm woke.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case.
There's a fine line to me between being woke and being a conspiracy theorist.
That's
In
so true.
essence, there's a very fine line.
Maybe we'll play that game. Are you a conspiracy theorist?
Exactly.
Or
Or are you woke?
Well, until then, let's get this bread.
Acquire that grain
Till this week.
and have a great week.